guys, in this video we are going to talk about cumulative frequency and cumulative percentage. Basically, we're adding on these two concepts to our frequency distribution chart that we talked about in the previous video. So let's start off by talking about cumulative frequency. So how do we calculate cumulative frequency and what is cumulative frequency? So let's talk about what it is. Cumulative frequency is the sum of the frequencies in and below a value. So what we're doing is we're adding up everything from a certain value and below. So when we're calculating the cumulative frequency, we must start at the lowest value. Now I know that I do my frequency distributions maybe just a little bit different from the textbook. I typically like to put my lowest value at the top of my frequency distribution. So in the examples I gave you, my pets, my families who had 0 pets was at the top, but a lot of times I've seen in your textbook they like to put the lowest value at the bottom. It honestly doesn't matter where your lowest value goes, whether it's at the top or the bottom, as long as they are in order. They can be either way. But we do have to start with the smallest value when we talk about cumulative frequency. And the highest value in your frequency chart should always add up to the number of data points in your set. That's your in value. So if our in value is 20, then our highest frequency on our chart should add up to 52. So let's do an example here on how to figure out a cumulative frequency. So I'm actually using the exact same frequency table we used in our previous example, the number of pets per household. So what we're going to do to find our cumulative frequency, we're going to start with our lowest value, so that's 0 pets per household. And we had 16 people or households that had no pets. So what we're going to do for our number of pets for the people who had 1 pet per household, is we're going to take that 16 and we're going to add the 15 to it. And we're going to say that there are 31 households that have either 1 or 0 pets. We're going to do the exact same thing for the next one. We're going to take that 31 from the previous one, and we're going to add 13. That's the number of households that have 2 pets. And we're going to find out that there are 44 households that have either 2, 1, or 0 pets. And we're just going to continue that process all the way down to 6 pets. So for 3 pets, we would add 44 plus 5 and get 49. For 4 pets, we would add 49 plus 1 and get 50. For 5, we would add 50 plus 1 and get 51. And finally, for 6, we would add 51 plus 1 and get 52. And if you'll remember from the previous video, that's the number of households surveyed was 52. So when I get to my highest value, my 6, my number of pets, I add up to the 52 households that we surveyed. That should always happen on all of your cumulative frequencies. Your highest value should always add up to the number of data points you have in your set. All right, so now let's talk about cumulative percentage. So cumulative percentage is a percentage based on the cumulative frequency. So this is the percentage of values that fall at or below a data value. So you want to say, for our instances, we want to talk about maybe a certain percentage having 2 or less animals in their household. That's our cumulative percentage. To calculate the cumulative percentage, all we need to do is divide the cumulative frequency, what we just found, by the number of data values are in, which is, in this case, or the example we're going to do here in just a minute, that's that 52. And then we're going to multiply it by 100. Again, the very last value we do, or the very last of the highest number in our chart, should always add up to 100%, because by this point you have talked about 100% of the people you've surveyed in your frequency chart. So let's look at this. So we've got our cumulative frequencies, that's that 16, 31, 44. Now we're going to find our cumulative percentages. So I'm going to start, I always again like to start at the lowest value. That's just kind of how I like to do it. And we're going to take that 16 and we are going to divide it by 52, since that's the number of households we surveyed, and we're going to multiply that by that 100%, and we should get 31%. I want you to notice that my cumulative frequency for 0 is the same thing as my percentage that I found in the previous video, 31%, because I'm still talking about the exact same amount of data there. Now it's going to start changing here in just a second when I do my next number of pets with 1, because now I'm going to take 31 and divide it by 52, and that times 100%, and that means I've got 60%. That means that 60% of the households we surveyed had 1 or 0 pets. Okay, so now we look at the next one. We've got 44 divided by 52 times 100, and we get 85%. That means that 85% of the households surveyed had 2, 1, or 0 pets. And we just continue working through the problem that way. 49 divided by 52 times 100 is 94%. 50 divided by 52 times 100 is 96%. 51 divided by 52 times 100 gives us 98%. And finally, 52 divided by 52 gives us 100%. And as it should be, again, when we get to the end of our list of cumulative percentages, it should always come up to 100%. Okay, so now let's look at percentile. So percentile rank is a particular score defined as the percentage of individuals in a distribution that score at or below that particular value. So like the 80th percentile is the value in which 80% of the data falls at or below that value. So for instance, here you see yourself, you, and if you're in the 80th percentile, that means 80% of the people who surveyed or took whatever exam fell below where you are. Okay, so the percentile is the score that is identified by the rank. You can use a frequency table to find the percentile for each class. So for instance, if I look at x equal to 1, this has a cumulative percentage of 60%. That means that 60% of the people who surveyed had 1 or 0 pets. So that means that 60% of households fall below 1 pet. So the percentile rank is 1.5, since the upper real for 1 pet would be 1.5 between 1 and 2. Remember we talked about calculating the real limits in chapter 1. So the real limit between 1 and 2 is halfway between 1 and 2, so 1.5. So the percentile rank for 60% would be 1.5. You always want to do the upper limits when we talk about those percentiles. Let me know if you have any questions on how to calculate cumulative frequency, cumulative percent, or percentile. I know percentile can sometimes be a little confusing.